Hi-yo everybody, my name's Volix and welcome to my channel. I've seen a lot of people putting out build videos for Remnant 2, so I thought I'd do my own. I'm really excited about this because I've been experimenting so much in this game. I finally got it together enough to do my own build video. It's the first one I've ever done, so that's just really cool to me. I'm calling it the Crab Nebula for obvious reasons that we'll go over in a minute, but first I just want to say if this video is at all fun for you, please hit the like button or consider subscribing because it really helps, or so I hear. Just as a disclaimer, this isn't supposed to be some OP, crazy DPS build or something you can face tank annihilation with. The goal of this build was to take space crabs as far as I absolutely could. I just wanted to be able to chuck out as many crabs as possible on apocalypse difficulty and have them do all the heavy lifting, just because, well, space crabs. So the premise is 100% uptime on the crabs, which means infinite mod power and buffing explosive damage as much as possible, which I think that we've achieved in this build, I'm proud to say. I'm going to try and make this quick, so let's get right into it. Okay, before going into the synergies, let's just go through all of the gear really quickly. We're running Archon and Medic for our archetypes because Apocalypse demands that we play defensively. Archon is going to be where most of our damage comes from, 50% mod damage, and that mod generation as well, the power generation. 50% bonus we proc after activating a mod is going to be particularly useful because we're popping mods constantly in this build. The medic doesn't really need explanation. Healing and defensive perks, yeah, they're vital in APOC. Faster relics, more healing, cooperative stuff, flat 25% damage bonuses, and 5% critical chance, all good. Perhaps most importantly, the -1 stagger modifier during relic use. This might just be the best perk that a medic has because it enables you to face devastating one-shots without breaking your stance, and in situations where you could wind up on the floor, this cuts down your recovery time considerably, which means another action in the heat of battle. It's basically everything. The skills for the archetypes are actually interchangeable. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Like when I'm solo, I just use the reality rune and wellspring or like anything. The armor, Fae for the headdress and chest and, you know, Leto Mark II is basically a trash can, honestly. We're Labyrinth gloves because they're a little bit lighter for the armor, whatever. There's like the better ratio. It's 333.3, 62.5% damage reduction in this. You can run the, what's it called? Bark extract, the concoction. If things get too real, you get another 45 armor. Okay, I love this combination because it's a good balance between tanking and looking chic, you know, since the meta has determined that the Mark II armor looks like a trash can. But the Fae hat is nice. I think it looks like a samurai trash can. The Labyrinth gloves are dope too. Anyway, for the Relic, Crystal Heart, because it provides excellent healing as well as some much needed damage reduction. The Relic has great synergy with the Medic's -1 stagger perk too. Very few situations can come between you and that healthy 25% damage reduction. Also, it's the best Relic that I have right now. So yeah, I haven't had the time to get to Tranquil Heart yet. The shards are debatable. I'm just, as you can see, elemental damage, mod damage, armor effectiveness. Go whatever way you want on those, I suppose. Jewelry. Okay, so the jewelry, we're just, you know, buffing explosions and elemental damage in this build. Detonation trigger. The crabs are just getting the love that they deserve. A little explosive buff, and more importantly, they are now burning crabs, which is great for several reasons we'll get into. The two essential rings, of course, in this build are Stone of Malevolence and the Timekeeper's Jewel. So, crabs now proc burning for twice the amount of time. That's what, 1255.5 over 10 seconds. That's all generating mod power with Malevolence. So Nebula's proccing this too. 2400, how much is it? It's like 2430 corrosive damage over 30 seconds. That's a long time. Timekeeper's ring, jewel, whatever. It's become like one of my favorite rings in the game because when I first got it, I thought it was useless and basically I filed it under garbage. I equipped it one time to see if it would extend bleeding time, and I discovered that it's not like, okay, so usually in Souls-likes, it's like 10% or 25% increase because Souls-likes are so stingy with buffs usually, but forget it, man. This thing is like a 100% increase most of the time. It's really good single item value. Yeah, and especially it just keeps the crabs burning forever. So with all the elemental damage ticking, Malevolence is just feeding our crabs. Sometimes the only problem is being able to get the shots off fast enough, man. With the remaining two, you know, I usually go defensive. I don't know, Blood Jewel, I don't know why that was in here. We'll put the hardcore metal band instead because it's the best nomenclature in the game, hands down. Absolutely. Okay. Ring of Crisis. I like this ring. It saved me many times. Hardened Coil is also really good. The weapons, again, we've been talking about them this whole time. Simple. It doesn't really matter what's on your primary as long as you can let the crabs in. And Nebula, of course. The melee weapon doesn't really matter either. So yeah, about the mutator, I couldn't really find a mutator that works with the crabs. I don't know, momentum, whatever, battery, they weren't working at all. So even Harmonizer wasn't working. I just threw Time Wave on there because it looks like it would be something that worked, and crowd control is cool. I wound up putting the Harmonizer on Nebula. So the traits like really standard for Apocalypse, just all defensive basically. Fortify, strong back. Let's see, Spirit and Vigor because we're using a lot of mods. We need Spirit, Bark Skin, of course, Siphoner because the damage is kind of just like ticking away in the background, and it. So the way the build works is by banking the elemental damage from the Nano Swarm in order to feed mod power to the crabs. And they've got such a low power requirement that they refresh constantly. You just wind up with crabs all over the place, which I love. The only real problem with this build is getting rid of all the damn crabs. Man, this guy, like, have you ever got shot by this dude? He's killing me, Bravus. Sheesh. All right, that's the build, everyone. After going out into the field and seeing how these crabs put out on Apocalypse, I've been pleasantly surprised with how well it plays. I thought it was just for the memes at first, but I've discovered that I actually really love my crabs. The reason for this is that I'm just sick of aiming my weapon. I don't want to stress out staring down sights at weak spots anymore. So for those of you who don't want to do any work, you just want to shoot your crabs wherever and have them handle business, this build is for you. The other advantage here is that it does not require any ammo at all. I barely had time to get off some fart guns while I was bossing, and even then, I was like actively deciding whether to proc acid damage or just shoot more crabs. After dumping so many rounds into Annihilation and then having to soak fat chunky root branches just to open an ammo box, it's a really nice reduction in boss stress. Of course, the drawback of all these crabs is that it falters against flying enemies. I mean, it's really impressive how high the crabs can jump, but having to rely on Nano Swarm for all your damage is just wacky on APOC. Last thing I want to mention is that there was great synergy between Space Crabs and Time Wave. Because we're generating so much mod power, crabs are getting activated all the time. It means that you're constantly pulsing out time waves and slowing absolutely everything. So like all the ads, it's like a joke. Bosses, I mean, they're highly resistant to slow, but they aren't totally immune. The debuff was only momentary, but it was noticeable enough that I felt like I had an edge that I didn't before. It actually made Nightweaver a really easy win. She felt kind of slow, honestly. Also, it was just so satisfying having like 15 crabs waiting for her when she phased in through the floorboards. Every other build fighting Nightweaver is like whipping her mouse around, trying to look for where she's gonna appear next. But here, crabs are just waiting patiently to blow up in her face. I love it. So clutch. For those of you who made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching. That's it for me this time. Keep farming, everybody.